The phone shattered the silence at 2:17 in the morning. I reached for it in the darkness, my hand fumbling across the nightstand while my wife slept beside me. The screen burned my eyes with its brightness. Unknown number. I almost declined it, but something made me answer instead. "Is this Trevor Dawson?" a woman's voice asked. She sounded professional, controlled, like someone used to delivering bad news at unreasonable hours. "Yes." "Who is this?" "My name is Patricia Winters. I'm the regional director at Blackstone Financial, where your wife works. I'm calling because there's been an incident at our downtown office. Your wife listed you as her emergency contact." My stomach dropped. I glanced at the empty space beside me. The sheets were cold. Vanessa wasn't there. She hadn't been there when I went to bed around midnight either. I had assumed she was working late again, like she'd been doing for months now. "What kind of incident?" I asked, sitting up straight. My heart was already racing, preparing me for whatever came next. "I think we should discuss this in person, Mr. Dawson. How soon can you get downtown?" "My name is Trevor Dawson, and I'm a high school math teacher in Denver, Colorado. I'm 36 years old, and up until that phone call, I thought I had a pretty normal life. Nothing fancy, but comfortable. I taught algebra to 10th graders at Lincoln High School, made about $38,000 a year, and lived in a one-bedroom apartment with my wife Vanessa. We'd been married for 7 years. Met at a friend's birthday party when we were both 25. She worked in accounting at Blackstone Financial. I was just starting my teaching career. We hit it off immediately, talking for hours on a rooftop patio while the party continued around us. The early years were good. We didn't have much money, but we were happy. Weekend hikes, home-cooked dinners, movie nights on our worn couch. We talked about saving for a house someday. Maybe having kids when we were ready. But somewhere along the way, things changed. I couldn't pinpoint exactly when. Maybe after her promotion when she started working longer hours. Maybe after I got passed over for department head and came home frustrated more often. The shift was gradual, like watching paint fade. I dressed in the dark, pulling on jeans and the first shirt I could find. My hands shook as I tied my shoes. Patricia had refused to give me details over the phone, which only made my imagination run wild with possibilities. An accident. A medical emergency. Something worse. Vanessa had been working late more frequently over the past year. At first, it was once or twice a week. Then 3 or 4 nights. Then almost every night. She'd come home after I was already asleep, slip under the covers without saying much, and be gone before I woke up. "Big project at work," she'd say when I asked. "You know how it is." I did know how it was. Or at least I thought I did. Accounting firms had busy seasons. Tax deadlines. Year-end closings. It made sense. The business trip started about a year ago. Weekend conferences in other cities. Training sessions lasting 3 or 4 days. She'd pack a suitcase, kiss me goodbye, and return looking exhausted. "How was the trip?" I'd ask. "Boring. Just meetings and presentations. You didn't miss anything." I believed her because why wouldn't I? This was Vanessa. My wife. The woman who returned extra change to cashiers. The woman who balanced our checkbook to the penny. The drive downtown took 20 minutes through empty streets. Denver looked different at this hour, stripped of its daytime energy, showing only bones and shadows. I parked in the visitor lot at Blackstone Financial and hurried toward the main entrance. A security guard let me in, checking my ID before directing me to the 11th floor. The elevator felt impossibly slow. I stared at my reflection in the polished doors. I looked tired and scared. My hair was messy and there were dark circles under my eyes I hadn't noticed before. The doors opened to reveal Patricia Winters waiting in the lobby. She was in her 50s, wearing a business suit despite the hour, her gray hair pulled back severely. "Mr. Dawson, thank you for coming so quickly." Teaching high school was harder than people realized. I had 5 classes daily, about 30 students each. That's 150 teenagers needing attention, help, patience. I graded papers every night, planned lessons on weekends, answered emails from worried parents. But I loved it. Seeing a student finally understand a concept they'd struggled with. The moment when math clicked and their whole face lit up. Those moments made everything worthwhile. Patricia led me through the silent office, past rows of empty cubicles and dark conference rooms. Our footsteps echoed on the tile floor. Everything felt wrong, like walking through a dream that hadn't quite turned into a nightmare yet but was heading that direction. We stopped outside a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. Through the glass, I could see someone sitting at the desk inside. Not Vanessa. A man I didn't recognize, maybe in his early 40s, wearing an expensive suit even at this ungodly hour. "Before we go in," Patricia said quietly, "I need you to understand something. What you're about to learn is going to be difficult. We discovered certain irregularities in our accounting department tonight. Your wife's name came up repeatedly during our investigation." My throat felt dry. "Where is Vanessa?" "She's been detained by building security. The police are on their way. Mr. Dawson, your wife has been embezzling money from this company for the past 18 months. We're talking about substantial amounts. Over $400,000. I stood there, unable to process what she was saying. The world tilted sideways. $400,000. Embezzling. Police. None of these words connected to the woman I had married 7 years ago. Vanessa worked in accounting, sure, but she was honest, careful, maybe too careful sometimes. She balanced our checkbook to the penny. She returned extra change when cashiers made mistakes. "There must be some error," I managed to say. "Vanessa wouldn't do that." "She couldn't." Patricia's expression softened slightly. "I understand this is shocking. Perhaps it would be better if you heard the details from someone who can explain the technical aspects. This is Derek Hammond, our Chief Financial Officer." The man in the office stood up and extended his hand through the doorway. His grip was firm, professional, completely inappropriate for the situation. "Mr. Dawson, I'm very sorry you're learning about this in such a difficult way. Please sit down." I sat. Patricia closed the door behind us, sealing us into this terrible moment. Derek returned to his seat behind the desk and opened a laptop. Derek turned the screen toward me, showing spreadsheets filled with numbers and dates that meant nothing to my exhausted brain. But as he talked, walking me through the evidence they had compiled over the past 6 hours of investigation, the pattern became impossible to deny. Vanessa had been creating fake vendor accounts. Companies that existed only on paper, with routing numbers that led to bank accounts in her name. She would approve payments to these phantom businesses, and the money would disappear. Small amounts at first, a few thousand here and there. But over time, the thefts had grown bolder, larger. We only discovered it tonight because one of our automated fraud detection systems flagged an unusually large transfer. Derek explained. When we dug deeper, we found evidence of systematic theft going back almost 2 years. Your wife was very clever about it. She knew exactly how our systems worked. I thought about all those late nights. All those weekends when Vanessa said she had to go into the office for special projects. The business trips that seemed to multiply over the past year. "Where is the money now?" I heard myself ask. My voice sounded hollow, like it belonged to someone else. Derek and Patricia exchanged glances. "That's what we're trying to determine," Patricia said. "The accounts we've traced so far have been emptied. She moved the money through several banks, making them difficult to track. We have forensic accountants working on it now. $400,000. Gone. And with it, apparently, the woman I thought I knew. I need to see her," I said, standing up abruptly. "I need to talk to Vanessa." Patricia stood as well, her expression cautious. "Mr. Dawson, I don't think that's a good idea right now. The police will be here soon, and anything you say to her could complicate matters. For your own protection, you should probably consult with an attorney before." "I don't care about that. I need to see my wife." They couldn't legally stop me, and they knew it. Patricia sighed and nodded to Derek, who made a phone call. Minutes later, we were riding the elevator down to the basement level. The security office was a cramped room filled with monitors showing different angles of the building. Vanessa sat in a plastic chair against the far wall, her hands folded in her lap. She looked up when I entered, and the expression on her face was something I had never seen before. Not guilt exactly. Not shame. Something colder. "Trevor," she said quietly, "you shouldn't have come. They told me you stole $400,000. They told me the police are coming." I moved closer, searching her face for some explanation, some sign that this was all a terrible mistake. "Tell me it's not true. Tell me there's been some kind of error." Vanessa looked away. "I can't tell you that." The security guard stepped outside to give us privacy, though I knew he was watching through the window. Patricia and Derek waited in the hallway. For a moment, it was just the two of us in that small room, and the silence stretched between us like a canyon. "Why?" I finally asked. "Why would you do this?" Vanessa's laugh was bitter, brittle. "Because I wanted something that was mine. Because I was tired of living in that tiny apartment, driving that embarrassing car, wearing discount clothes while I watched other people spend money they didn't earn. I worked hard, Trevor. I deserve better than what you could give me." The words hit like physical blows. "What I could give you?" "Vanessa, we decided together to save money. We talked about buying a house someday, maybe starting a family. Those were our plans." "Those were your plans," she corrected. "Your safe, boring, middle-class plans. I wanted more than that. I wanted the life I saw other people living. The trips, the nice things, the freedom. I thought about our apartment, the one-bedroom place we had moved into after getting married. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. Or so I thought. I thought about the used Honda Civic I drove, the one Vanessa always complained about. The home-cooked meals instead of restaurants, the movie nights instead of concerts. "You could have talked to me," I said. "You could have told me you were unhappy." Vanessa finally met my eyes again. "Would it have mattered? You're a high school teacher, Trevor. You make $38,000 a year. That's never going to change. You love your job, you love those kids, and I used to think that was admirable. But it's not enough." I felt something inside me crack. Not break, not yet, but crack in a way I knew would never fully heal. "So you stole. You committed a felony. You threw away everything we had because you wanted expensive things?" "It wasn't just about things," she said, her voice rising. "It was about having choices. It was about not feeling trapped. You don't understand what it's like to be surrounded by wealth every day, to process these huge transactions, to see how the other half lives while you're eating peanut butter sandwiches for lunch." "Where did the money go?" I asked, my voice flat now. $400,000. "Where is it?" She looked away again. "That's none of your business anymore. I'm your husband. Not for much longer, you're not." The police arrived at 3:45 in the morning. 2 detectives, one male and one female, both wearing tired expressions that suggested they had been called in from home. I watched from the hallway as they read Vanessa her rights. She didn't cry. She didn't protest. She just stood up calmly and allowed herself to be handcuffed. As they led her past me toward the elevator, she paused. "Trevor, don't try to visit me. Don't call. Don't do anything stupid like trying to help me. This marriage is over. Move on with your life." Then she was gone, and I was standing in a corporate basement at 4 in the morning, my entire world shattered around me. Patricia touched my arm gently. "Mr. Dawson, you should go home. Get some rest. You'll need to speak with investigators tomorrow, but for now, there's nothing more you can do here." I drove home on autopilot, barely registering the streets, or the traffic lights. The sky was starting to lighten in the east, gray dawn creeping across the city. Back in our apartment, everything looked exactly the same as when I had left it hours earlier. But it all felt different now, contaminated by knowledge I couldn't unknow. I walked through the rooms like a stranger, seeing everything with new eyes. In the bedroom, I opened Vanessa's closet. Behind her normal work clothes, pushed to the back, I found garments I had never seen before. Designer dresses with tags still attached. Expensive shoes in boxes. A leather jacket that probably cost more than my monthly salary. In the bathroom, hidden under the sink behind cleaning supplies, I discovered makeup and perfumes and brands I didn't recognize still in shopping bags from stores I had never heard of. I moved to her dresser and opened the top drawer. Underneath her regular jewelry, I found a small box. Inside was a passport. But when I opened it, the photo was Vanessa's face with a different name. Melissa Crawford. My hands trembled as I set the passport on the bed and continued searching. Bank statements for accounts I didn't know existed. The bank statements showed deposits and withdrawals spanning months. Not hundreds of thousands. Just regular amounts, a few thousand here, 5,000 there, like someone building a nest egg slowly and carefully. The most recent balance showed $87,000. Under a name that wasn't hers. I sat on the edge of the bed, passport in one hand, bank statements in the other, and tried to piece together what I was seeing. Vanessa hadn't just stolen money from her company. She had been planning to disappear. She had created an entirely new identity, a new life, and I had never noticed. How long had she been planning this? When did my wife stop being my wife and become a stranger wearing a familiar face? My phone rang. I assumed it was Patricia or one of the detectives, but the caller ID showed a local number I didn't recognize. I answered anyway. Is this Trevor Dawson? A man's voice this time, younger, nervous. Yes. Who are you? My name is Kyle Preston. I'm a financial advisor at Mountainside Investments. I think we need to talk about your wife. Kyle Preston agreed to meet me at a coffee shop near downtown at 7 in the morning. I hadn't slept at all, running on adrenaline and shock. The cafe was just opening when I arrived, and I ordered coffee I didn't want just to have something to hold. Kyle showed up 10 minutes later, a man in his late 20s wearing a polo shirt and khakis. He looked as exhausted as I felt. We sat at a corner table away from the few early morning customers. I don't know if I should be telling you this, he started, but after I saw the news about the arrest at Blackstone Financial, I couldn't keep quiet anymore. Your wife came to me 6 months ago. She said she had received an inheritance and wanted help investing it. I leaned forward. How much money are we talking about? She opened an account with $230,000. Said it was from a deceased aunt. I didn't question it because people get inheritances all the time. She wanted the money in liquid assets, nothing tied up long term. I thought it was unusual but not suspicious. Kyle pulled out his phone and showed me account statements. Vanessa's face stared back at me from the account holder photo, but the name listed was Melissa Crawford, the same name from the passport. She came in every few weeks. Kyle continued. Always asked about the account balance, wanted to know exactly how much money she could access immediately. She talked about moving abroad someday, maybe Europe or South America. I just thought she was planning early retirement. Is the money still there? I asked. He shook his head. She cleaned out the account 3 days ago. Every penny. I didn't think much of it at the time because it was her money, or at least I thought it was. But then I saw her face on the morning news report about corporate theft, and I realized what I had been helping her do. $230,000. Added to the $87,000 in the other accounts, that was over $300,000. Still short of the full $400,000 Blackstone claimed was missing, but close enough to tell me Vanessa had been systematic in hiding her theft. Did she ever mention anyone else? I asked. A partner, a friend, anyone who might have been involved? Kyle hesitated, then nodded slowly. There was someone. A man who came with her once, about 4 months ago. She introduced him as her financial consultant, but they seemed too familiar for that. The way they looked at each other, the small touches when they thought I wasn't watching. I got the impression they were more than colleagues. The betrayal expanded, growing larger and more complex. Not just theft. Not just a secret identity. But someone else. Another man. Another piece of the life Vanessa had been building without me. What did he look like? I heard myself ask. Tall, maybe 40 years old, expensive suit. Dark hair going gray at the temples. He had the air of someone with money, someone who was used to being important. I remember thinking they made a striking couple. Kyle's description matched no one I knew. No one from Vanessa's office, no one from our social circle, which had admittedly shrunk over the past year. I thanked Kyle for meeting with me and promised I would share the information with the police. He looked relieved, like he had been carrying a weight he was glad to set down. Back in my car, I sat in the parking lot and made a phone call to one of the detectives who had arrested Vanessa. Detective Rebecca Torres answered on the second ring. Mr. Dawson, I was planning to contact you today anyway. We have some questions. I have information, I interrupted. And I have evidence. Can we meet? An hour later, I was sitting in a conference room at the police station, laying out everything I had found. The passport under a false name. The bank statements showing hundreds of thousands in hidden accounts. Kyle's testimony about the mystery man. Torres and her partner, Detective Frank Morrison, listened carefully, taking notes. This changes things, Torres said finally. We were treating this as a simple embezzlement case, but if your wife created a false identity and was planning to flee the country, we're looking at something much more serious. And if there's a partner involved, someone who helped her or benefited from the theft, we need to find him. Morrison was already on his phone, calling someone in the financial crimes unit. Torres turned back to me, her expression sympathetic but professional. Mr. Dawson, I need to ask you some difficult questions now. Did you have any knowledge of your wife's activities? Any suspicion at all? No, I said firmly. I had no idea. I thought she was working late. I thought we were happy, or at least okay. I was completely blind to all of this. Did you benefit financially from any of the stolen money? No. Check our joint accounts, our credit cards, everything. We live modestly. We always have. That was one of the things she threw in my face last night. That I couldn't give her the lifestyle she wanted. Torres nodded, making notes. We'll need to verify that, you understand. Standard procedure. But based on what you've brought us today, I believe you're a victim in this too. You've been very helpful. I didn't feel helpful. I felt stupid, betrayed, humiliated. I felt like everyone we knew would soon find out that my wife had been living a double life and I had been too oblivious to notice. The next few days blurred together. I called in sick to work, unable to face my students while my personal life was falling apart so publicly. The local news picked up the story. High school teacher's wife arrested for massive corporate theft. Some reporters even showed up at our apartment building, but I refused to talk to them. Vanessa was denied bail. The prosecutor argued she was a significant flight risk given the false identity, and the amount of money still unaccounted for. I didn't attend the hearing. I couldn't bear to see her again. My phone rang constantly. Friends calling to check on me, or maybe just to get gossip. Family members expressing shock and concern. I ignored most of them. Only my brother Austin got through, and only because he showed up at my door with takeout food and refused to leave. You look terrible, he said, setting Chinese food containers on the kitchen table. When's the last time you ate? I couldn't remember. Days had stopped having normal markers like meals or sleep or routine. She had a whole other life, I told him. Austin listened as I explained everything I had discovered. The fake passport, the hidden bank accounts, the mystery man who might have been her accomplice or her lover or both. My brother's face grew darker as I talked. You need to protect yourself legally, he said when I finished. File for divorce immediately. Make sure your finances are completely separate from hers. The company she stole from might try to come after marital assets. We don't have any assets, I said bitterly. Apparently that was the whole problem. Still. Talk to a lawyer. Tomorrow. Promise me. I promise, and Austin stayed until late that night, refusing to leave me alone. Having him there helped. It reminded me that not everyone in my life was a lie. The next morning, I found a divorce attorney who specialized in cases involving criminal activity. Her name was Diane Fletcher, and she had kind eyes behind severe glasses. "Mr. Dawson, I'm very sorry for what you're going through. Unfortunately, I see cases like this more often than you'd think. Let's talk about protecting your interests." Diane explained that while Colorado was a no-fault divorce state, Vanessa's criminal activity would definitely impact how assets were divided. Not that there were many assets to divide. Our apartment was a rental. Our cars were old. Our savings account, the joint one I had access to, held barely $3,000. "What about the money she stole?" I asked. "If they recover it, can she use it to hire a better lawyer or fight the divorce?" "No. Stolen funds can't be used for legal fees or any legitimate purpose. Whatever money is recovered will go back to Blackstone Financial first, and then she'll likely face additional penalties and restitution. Your wife is looking at serious prison time, Mr. Dawson. Probably 5 to 10 years. 5 to 10 years. A decade of her life spent in prison. Part of me felt satisfaction at that. But another part, a part one wasn't proud of, still hurt for her. Still remembered the woman I had married, even though she apparently had never really existed. Diane filed the divorce papers that afternoon. Vanessa would be served in jail. I didn't know if she would fight it or accept it. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. A week after Vanessa's arrest, Detective Torres called with news. They had identified the mystery man from Kyle's description. His name was Vincent Shaw, a commercial real estate developer with a history of questionable business dealings. More importantly, they had found evidence linking him directly to Vanessa's crimes. "We executed a search warrant on his home and office this morning," Torres explained. "We found correspondence between him and your wife going back 2 years. Email chains discussing the embezzlement, plans for where to move the money, even vacation planning for after they both disappeared. He was definitely her partner in this." "Was he also her lover?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Torres paused. "Yes. The emails make that clear. I'm sorry, Mr. Dawson. I know that makes this even more difficult." Vincent Shaw was arrested that afternoon. The news reported that he had also been embezzling from his own company, using similar methods to what Vanessa had employed. Together, they had stolen nearly $600,000 between them. They had been planning to meet in Costa Rica. Start new lives with new identities. Leave everything behind. 2 weeks after that, I finally returned to work. My principal, Mr. Henderson, had been understanding about the time off, but life had to continue. Bills still needed to be paid, even if my marriage was destroyed. My students were surprisingly gentle with me. Teenagers can be cruel, but they can also be perceptive and kind when it matters. They didn't ask questions. They just seemed glad I was back. During lunch, I sat in my empty classroom and checked my email. There was a message from the detective. They had recovered most of the money. Vanessa and Vincent had both started cooperating with investigators, probably hoping for reduced sentences. Bank accounts had been frozen, assets seized. The money would go back to the companies they had stolen from. Neither of them asked about me. Neither sent messages or apologies. Whatever we had been, whatever I thought we had been, was truly over. I replied to Torres, thanking her for the update. Then I deleted every photo of Vanessa from my phone. Every message, every memory I could erase digitally. The physical purging would come later. The divorce was finalized 3 months after Vanessa's arrest. She didn't contest it. Her lawyer, a public defender who looked almost as tired as I felt, explained that Vanessa understood the marriage was over. She signed the papers from jail, and just like that, 7 years of my life were legally ended. I moved out of our apartment the following week. I couldn't stay there anymore, surrounded by ghosts and lies. I found a smaller place across town, a studio that was just big enough for me and the fresh start I was trying to build. Austin helped me move, and so did a few colleagues from school. We filled my brother's truck with the few possessions I wanted to keep, and left everything else behind. Vanessa could deal with it later, or the landlord could throw it away. I didn't care anymore. My new apartment had a balcony that overlooked a small park. I spent the first evening there sitting outside, watching children play on the swings while their parents watched nearby. Normal families living normal lives, unaware of how quickly everything could fall apart. Vanessa's trial happened 6 months after her arrest. I didn't attend, but Austin did, wanting to support me from a distance. He reported that she showed no emotion as the guilty verdict was read. She was sentenced to 8 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 5. Vincent Shaw got 10 years. I felt nothing when Austin told me. No satisfaction, no sadness, no anger. Just a distant acknowledgement that justice had been served, whatever that meant. Life moved forward in small, unremarkable ways. I started therapy, working through the betrayal and the self-doubt. I started running in the mornings, finding peace in the rhythm and the solitude. I focused on my students, remembering why I had chosen teaching in the first place. 1 year after that phone call at 2:17 in the morning, I was sitting in my apartment when my phone rang. Unknown number. For a moment, I considered not answering. But curiosity won. Is this Trevor Dawson? A woman's voice, different from Patricia's, younger and warmer. Yes. Who is this? My name is Olivia Kent. I know this is strange, but I'm a friend of your brother Austin. He mentioned you might be interested in joining a hiking group some of us are putting together. I almost said no. My instinct was to decline, to stay in my safe, solitary routine where no one could hurt me again. But something made me pause. Maybe it was therapy finally taking effect. Maybe it was exhaustion from being lonely. Maybe it was just time. Tell me more about this hiking group, I said. Olivia's enthusiasm was infectious as she described weekend trips into the mountains, groups of people who just wanted to enjoy nature and good company. No pressure, no expectations, just fresh air and conversation. Our next trip is in 2 weeks, she finished. Red Rocks Canyon. We're meeting at sunrise. You should come. Austin says you need to get out more. I smiled despite myself. Austin talks too much. So is that a yes? I looked around my small apartment, at the life I had rebuilt from nothing. It wasn't much, but it was mine. It was honest. And maybe it was time to let it grow beyond these walls. Yes, I said. I'll be there. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my home and thought about how far I had come. From that horrible phone call in the middle of the night to this moment, choosing to take a chance on something new. The woman I had married was in prison, paying for her crimes. The life we had shared was gone forever. But I was still here. Still standing. Still capable of moving forward. The sun was setting outside my window, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Tomorrow would come, and the day after that, and the day after that. And slowly, painfully, honestly, I was learning how to live again.